Hey, welcome to a new episode of Life on the Research Trail. I'm Ron Coddington, editor and publisher of Military Images magazine. This morning, I put the finishing touches on a profile of the man pictured here, First Lieutenant James Hill. He was a Baptist preacher before the Civil War, hailed from London, England, came over to the United States and made his home in Iowa. In 1862, he decides to join the war, and he set aside his job as a preacher to become an officer in the state's 21st Infantry. As one Iowa historian put it, Hill seems to have combined the church militant with gallant soldierly fighting. And so it was. Hill takes control and command of his company. One of his first major actions happens to be operations around the Vicksburg campaign. And in that capacity, on May 16th, 1863, an event happens that eventually enables him to receive the Medal of Honor. So if you go and do some basic research on his Medal of Honor citation, it simply mentions that he skillfully managed soldiers at Champion Hill, which, as you students of the Civil War will know, was a pivotal battle, the pivotal battle in the Vicksburg campaign. The reality is different, or there's not enough detail in the citation to let you know what actually happened. So you do a little bit of research, and here's the story. His regiment was held in reserve at the Battle of Champion Hill. And on that day, May 16th of 1863, the regiment's colonel orders First Lieutenant Hill to gather together a party of foragers to find food and horses and other supplies because they're expecting to win the battle and go on to Vicksburg or get a little closer to Vicksburg. So Hill dutifully obeys. He organizes a party to go out and find supplies in the countryside. And then he sends them out and says, hey, I'll meet up with you guys at a certain crossroads, and we'll take everything that we got in the country and bring it back to the regiment so we can go on our march. Now, as you might imagine, if you're going to go out on any kind of a detail in hostile country, there's a chance that you're going to meet up with the enemy. And so that's what happens here. As the foragers disperse, Hill gets on a pony, as he describes it, and he begins to ride out to see what he can find. And he's all alone. He's on a path in some dense underbrush when he inadvertently crosses over into Confederate territory and runs into three soldiers on picket, three rebel soldiers on picket. And the way he tells the story is he sees these guys, he realizes who they are, and he decides to take control of the situation. So what he does is he orders them to halt. He basically tells them that they are prisoners, to drop their guns, drop their rifles, actually. And then he dismounts from his pony. He gathers up the rifles. He lays the rifles against the pony, and then he gets on the pony, gets the rifles, puts them under his arm. Meanwhile, on several occasions while this is happening, Hill is shouting out into the woods to tell his guard, to tell the other members of his patrol to halt, to watch it if these guys make any smart move to fire on them. Of course, Hill is giving orders to no one because he's all alone in the woods. So he's created an imaginary guard, and he's barking orders to this guard who doesn't exist. He's managed somehow to fool the three rebel pickets. And these rebel pickets believe there's a larger force, and that they can't move because they're overwhelmed and outnumbered. Of course, it's only Hill on his little pony. So let's take you back to the moment. Hill is on his pony. He has the 3 rifles under his arm, and he marches these 3 rebel, now prisoners, into Union lines. He makes it safely back to his regiment. He turns over the 3 rebel pickets to the commanders, and they go off to prison, and Hill reunites with his foragers. They get the supplies and go on about their business. So a little anecdote that Hill gives is that the pickets do figure out that this is all a ruse and that the guard is imaginary. And one of the rebel prisoners tells Hill that he was so believable, they actually believed that there was a guard that was taking care to make sure that they didn't escape while they were marching back. So a little bit of acting going on. It turns out that Hill, the Baptist preacher from England, just bluffed his way into capturing 3 rebel prisoners. And perhaps had it gone another way, he himself would have obviously been taken prisoner, and perhaps some of the forage party. So he managed to turn a really difficult situation, as Hill himself said it, a nasty situation, into success. So 30 years later, in 1893, as the government was awarding medals of honor to Civil War veterans as their stories were being told, in 1893, as I mentioned, Hill's story comes to the attention of the government, and he's awarded the nation's highest honor for his gallantry on that day near Champion Hill in Vicksburg. 6 years later, in 1899, Hill passes away. He's about in his late 70s, and his name lives on in the annals of Medal of Honor recipients. So does his image. You're looking at him right now. So this is First Lieutenant James Hill. I should mention, a few months after his Medal of Honor performance, he becomes chaplain of the 21st Iowa. So he ultimately did set aside his fighting soldierly officer duties to become the regiment's chaplain. So there you have it, the story of First Lieutenant James Hill turned Chaplain Hill of the 21st Iowa Infantry, and the event that led to him receiving the Medal of Honor. So thanks for tuning in. Until the next video, happy trails. Take care. Bye.